the disunited states of America. Well, joining me now to address the challenges is Adrian Fenty. He's the former Democratic mayor of Washington, D.C., and former Republican Congressman Bob Walker. Congressman, if I can start with you, the Republican Party took quite a beating last night. What does the future look like?
Well, we did take a beating in the presidential race. We certainly did in the Senate races. Of course, we held on to the House, and the majority there is still pretty substantial. And we picked up at least one governorship and maybe as many as 3.
Right, but this was a presidential election the Republican Party could have and perhaps should have won, but you didn't.
We probably should have won it because certainly the economic circumstances are such that we should have been able to win. And I think what it says is that the Republican Party needs to be less of a homogeneous party and more of an inclusive party in the future. And we've got to figure out a way to do that, to stick to principles that we think are important, but also reach out more broadly than the party's been able to do in the last couple of presidential elections.
Mayor Fenty, you're a close supporter of Barack Obama's. Was this an election then not so much about perhaps his economic policies as it is, frankly, about the demographics of this country?
You know, I think you have to give him a lot of credit in being able to show people that while he didn't solve all the problems, he toiled in the trenches. I really get the impression that the American citizens thought that Obama is an earnest, hardworking, honest politician. They don't see him as kind of the savior anymore, but they're willing to let him roll up his sleeves and work. So I give him a lot of credit in that regard. In the politics of it, there is something to what the congressman said here, and it'll be interesting in future elections whether Barack Obama, because of his unique stature as the first African-American president, is able to go into the minority communities of the country and get more turnout and higher percentages than not just the Republican Party, but maybe even future Democrats, or if the Democratic Party can then now lay claim to those votes. Okay, because then the Republicans would absolutely have to switch.
Clearly, this country has laid clear the fact that America is changing. It is changing from being a more white country to a country with more people who are Hispanic or African American, and that is something that the Republican Party is going to have to address. But how do they do it? What actually is the process there?
Well, I mean, look, America's always been a diverse country, and you know we've had waves of immigration over a period of years, and it's always been a diverse country.
But the populations that are growing are the Hispanic population.
Sure, but the Hispanic population is also one that shares a lot of the principles of the Republican Party. They tend to be hardworking. They tend to be highly religious. They have a lot of characteristics that are clearly Republican. We haven't done a good enough job of outreach to them, and in fact have even appeared to be pushing them away in recent years.
Okay, let's talk not just about the future of your party, because I want to get on to the more immediate challenges, this challenge of the budget crisis that is looming. Do you think now the election is over, this poisonous political season is over, there is room for Democrats, Mayor Fenty, and Republicans to actually do the cooperation that people say they want?
I do, and I would actually put the onus on President Obama. I think he has to go back 5 or 6 years to his statements about this being not the red states, the blue states, but the United States of America. He cannot continue to push what is almost 100% Democrat agenda and actually have a belief that there's going to be bipartisanship. He's got to start his discussions with Republicans and Democrats in the same room. Sometimes he's going to have to side with Republicans. I think that's fine for the American people. They don't really care. They just want things done. But over the last 4 years, there was too much just taking the Democratic agenda and trying to shove it into Congress. And I think that wasn't good. And I think he's got to take the leadership role.
Congressman, that must be music to your ears, but Republicans are going to have to give something too, aren't they? They are going to have to agree that revenue and raising taxes is going to have to be part of any sort of budget deal.
It starts with talking to each other. I mean, I think the administration learned some bad habits when they controlled both the House and the Senate and could shove their own agenda.
So it's all the Democrats' fault?
Yeah, but the fact is that they do need to talk to each other. And I think John Boehner opened the conversation today by saying that, look, if we can agree that what we need to do is have additional revenue for the government, rather than simply stick to the idea that we have to raise taxes, but that we need additional revenue that we can get through tax reform. That gives us a basis on which we can begin to talk about how we solve some of these problems. And so I think John reached out to the president today, and I hope the president responds in turn.
Okay, well, it's going to be a very interesting couple of years. Congressman Bob Walker, Mayor Adrian Fenty, thank you very much, both of you, for joining me here.